You know the exact feeling. You are standing in the kitchen or sitting on the edge of the couch, and suddenly you feel it. The heavy, lateral side press. Your dog does not just sit next to you. They plant their feet, shift their entire center of mass, and drop their whole body weight against your leg. It feels like a hug. It feels incredibly intentional. And if you suddenly step away, they will literally fall over. They are completely off balance. Why do they do this? Most owners assume it is just a quirk, but the reality is deeply rooted in evolutionary biology. For decades, trainers and pop culture fed you terrible logic regarding this behavior. They told you this was a dominance play. They said your dog was resource guarding you, asserting their physical rank in an imaginary alpha wolf pack. Or they told you it was simple thermoregulation, that your dog was just cold, stealing your body heat like a wild animal huddling in a winter den. They framed your dog's affection as a manipulative power struggle. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. The heavy side press has absolutely nothing to do with domination, and it is not about staying warm. The truth? This is not about dominance, and it is definitely not about stealing body heat in a 72-degree living room. When your dog leans heavily against you, they are executing a highly sophisticated mechanism of interspecies co-regulation. They are literally hijacking your nervous system to regulate their own. Prepare to unlearn everything you thought you knew, because the hard science behind the canine body press will change the way you look at your dog forever. Let's dismantle the dominance myth with hard science. In a landmark behavioral review published by the University of Bristol's Anthrozoology Institute, researchers definitively established that domestic dogs do not attempt to form dominance hierarchies with humans. The heavy side press is not agonistic, meaning it is not conflict-seeking. It is entirely affiliative. When a dog presses against you, they are yielding their center of gravity. They place themselves in a physically vulnerable, completely off-balance state. That is never an act of control. That is an act of supreme trust. What about the infamous guilt lean? You scold your dog for chewing a shoe, and they immediately walk over and press heavily against your shins. People assume the dog is apologizing, but neurologically, dogs lack the prefrontal cortex development required to process abstract moral guilt. This is actually a classical appeasement behavior. Driven by acute anxiety, your dog is desperately seeking physical contact to trigger a parasympathetic nervous system response. They are trying to downregulate your cortisol levels while simultaneously crashing their own. Because this isn't just psychology, it's chemistry. The physical pressure of a dog's body against your legs or torso acts as a targeted form of deep pressure stimulation, or DPS. This intense tactile input directly stimulates the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10. When that specific nerve fires, it physically forces the autonomic nervous system to shift gears. It pulls the brain out of a sympathetic fight or flight state and locks it into a parasympathetic rest and digest state. It is a biological override switch. The proof is in the peer-reviewed chemistry. In 2015, researchers at Azabu University in Japan tracked the exact neurochemical shifts between dogs and humans during physical contact. They measured urine oxytocin concentrations before and after 30 minutes of interaction. While the media focused on eye contact, the physical data was staggering. Sustained affiliative physical contact, like leaning and heavy stroking, resulted in a 130% increase in canine oxytocin. But the human? The human experienced a massive 300% increase. Let that biological reality sink in. Your dog's body pressure alters your brain chemistry more than it alters theirs. And this chemical synchronization happens incredibly fast. A fascinating study from the University of Skövde in Sweden used heart rate variability monitors to track cardiovascular activity during this exact type of heavy contact. They discovered that affiliative physical pressure causes a statistically significant drop in canine cortisol levels within 1 to 5 minutes of sustained leaning. But the researchers at Skövde found something even more incredible in the data. As the dog leaned against the human, the dog's heart rate variability increased, which is a primary indicator of deep vagal tone parasympathetic relaxation. Within minutes, the dog's cardiovascular rhythm physically synced with the human's lowered heart rate. They literally use the physical density of your body as a proprioceptive anchor to calm their own beating heart. You are their biological pacemaker. This profound level of attachment mirrors our own children. At Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary, the famous Family Dog Project adapted Mary Ainsworth's strange situation test, originally designed for human infants, to measure dog owner attachment. The data revealed that domestic dogs exhibit secure attachment profiles exactly identical to human toddlers. In clinical terms, the lateral lean is formally classified as contact maintenance behavior. They lean because they are securely attached to their primary caregiver. But why us? Why did dogs seek out human bodies instead of just leaning on each other? To understand this, we have to look backward into deep evolutionary history. While wild wolves exhibit affiliative huddling within their own conspecific family units, they actively maintain strict spatial boundaries with other species. But early domestication changed the biological math. For proto-dogs scavenging near human settlements up to 30,000 years ago, a diminished flight distance was required. Proximity to humans equaled survival. This need for heavy contact is not a modern indoor habit. It is an ancient evolutionary mandate visible in the archaeological record. Archaeologists excavating the Ain Malaha burial site in northern Israel found the earliest undisputed evidence of this emotional bond, dating back 12,000 years. They discovered an elderly human buried alongside a puppy. The human's left hand rested perfectly upon the dog's thorax. Sustained tactile proximity was deeply ingrained at the very dawn of the Holocene. But the most groundbreaking recent revelation in canine evolution explains the precise biological mechanism behind this behavior. It answers why dogs are so obsessed with human contact. It involves a massive genetic mutation related to a human condition called Williams-Buren syndrome. In humans, this syndrome is characterized by extreme gregariousness, absolute hypersociability, and an intense, irrepressible drive for physical proximity. Researchers from Princeton University and Oregon State University sequenced the structural variants in genes on canine chromosome 6. They compared the DNA of 18 wolves and 18 domestic dogs. The study identified definitive structural variants, specifically insertions and deletions, in the GTF2I and GTF2IRD1 genes in domestic dogs. These are the exact same genomic regions responsible for Williams-Buren syndrome in humans. Think about what that genetic data actually means. Thousands of years of selective evolution genetically engineered domestic dogs to experience an intense, hypersocial drive to initiate physical contact with us. Your dog does not just want to lean on you. Their DNA demands it. It is an irresistible biological compulsion hardwired into their genetic operating system over millennia of interspecies coexistence. Which brings us to a critical, potentially life-saving clinical warning. Because the heavy side press is so deeply embedded in a dog's genetic and neurological baseline, any sudden disruption to this behavior is a massive clinical biomarker. If a dog that traditionally leans suddenly stops or changes the mechanical way they lean against you, it is rarely just a behavioral quirk. It is almost always a medical red flag that requires immediate attention. The first culprit is hidden musculoskeletal pain. Executing a heavy lateral lean requires a dog to perfectly shift their center of mass. This demands intense stabilization from their core spinal muscles and the opposite limbs. If your dog suddenly refuses to lean on their right side, it strongly indicates that bearing stabilizing weight on their left limbs has become far too painful. This is a primary early warning sign of severe osteoarthritis or progressive hip dysplasia. The second vital red flag involves canine dementia. As dogs age, they can develop canine cognitive dysfunction, or CCD. This involves beta amyloid plaque accumulation in the brain, pathologically identical to human Alzheimer's disease. Veterinarians use the acronym DISHA to clinically diagnose CCD. The I stands for interactions altered. A dog losing their spatial mapping memory may completely forget how to co-regulate with you. Their oxytocin loops blunt. They will pace distantly rather than seek contact comfort. Finally, you must differentiate an affiliative lean from a compensatory lean. If your dog begins leaning heavily against walls, furniture, or your legs, but does so clumsily, accompanied by darting eyes, a head tilt, or a drunken, staggering gait, this is not an expression of love. It is a symptom of idiopathic vestibular disease, a severe inner ear infection, or a central nervous system lesion. Immediate veterinary neurological evaluation is required. Do not ignore a clumsy lean. So the next time your dog walks over, drops their weight against your calf, and pins you to the couch, do not just push them away. Understand what is truly happening beneath their fur. They are yielding their physical balance to you. They are flooding their bloodstream, and yours, with a massive, calming surge of oxytocin. They are literally using the density of your body to slow down their own heart rate and find peace in a chaotic world. It is never a dominance play. It is an ancient genetic compulsion forged over 30,000 years of evolutionary survival. They lean on you because, in their world, you are the ultimate biological anchor. You are their gravity. Tell me in the comments, does your dog do the heavy side press, and do they favor one side over the other? If you found this scientific breakdown valuable, hit subscribe, because next time we are diving deep into the science of why dogs obsessively lick human hands and feet. You might think it's just because they like the salt on your skin, but the actual neurochemical reality of that behavior is even stranger than you'd expect. Until then, keep leaning on each other.